Centering prayer is a practice of sitting in silence with the Lord for a prearranged, agreed upon length of time, and simply being quiet with God. Centering prayer is not intended to replace other kinds of prayer. Conversational prayer is important, but centering prayer is a type of prayer that invites you to move beyond conversation with Jesus to communion with Jesus. In the midst of a world that is loud, in the midst of a world where there are so many demands and expectations placed upon us, centering prayer is a discipline that allows us to let go of our tight stranglehold on control and productivity for just a little while, and to place all of it into God's trustworthy hands. The practice of centering prayer is a practice of letting go, prioritizing, simply spending time with God. In centering prayer, we simply waste a few moments of time with the one who loves us. You could also think of centering prayer as simply sitting in the loving gaze of God for a few moments, allowing God to love you. It can feel overwhelming to commit to 20 minutes of silence if this is not something that you're used to. And so there are some tools, some guidelines that Christians throughout the ages have found to be helpful in stepping into this practice. So the first one is to consider choosing a sacred word as a symbol of your intention to consent to God's presence and action within you. You may know this as a breath prayer, a simple phrase that when your mind gets distracted, you can come back to, that can center you in your intention to be present with God. The second guideline is to sit comfortably with your eyes closed, to settle briefly into your chair, and then to silently and gently introduce that sacred word, that breath prayer, as the symbol of your intention to be present with God. The third guideline is to be gracious with yourself, to be so gentle with yourself when distractions come. Henry Nouwen describes our brains as trees with monkeys jumping around in them. There are going to be thoughts, memories, imaginations, distractions. This is part of what it means to be human. The invitation in centering prayer is to simply accept that that is how God has made us. And as those thoughts come, to simply allow them to flow down the stream of our consciousness as we sit there. It's important to have a joyful, friendly attitude towards the thoughts that come. Now, the reason for this is that any emotional response to the things going on in our mind, annoyance, frustration, grief, these simply add to the clutter and further distract us from our intention of simply being present with God. So be gracious with yourself. Expect the distractions, but when they come, simply let them flow past in the stream of your consciousness and return to that sacred word. And the fourth guideline: at the end of the time of prayer that you have committed to, whether that's 5 minutes, 15, 20, half an hour, remain in silence with your eyes closed for a couple of more minutes. And then when you're ready, gently bring the time of prayer to a close.